There are certain truths we carry in silence, not because they're too heavy, but because they're too familiar. You don't need me to tell you what happened. You already know. You felt it before you named it. She stopped seeing you. Not in the literal sense. Her eyes still found you across the room. Her voice still said your name. But somewhere beneath the surface, she stopped reaching for you with the part of her that matters. The part that listens when you're quiet. The part that holds space for your effort, without asking you to earn your own worth. And maybe you didn't notice it at first. Maybe you were too busy trying to hold the shape of what you had, too busy justifying her distance, too tired to wonder when you started apologizing for simply being sincere. But then came the quiet moment, the kind of silence that doesn't scream, doesn't demand, doesn't perform, just settles, like dust in a room where no one's coming back. That's when you knew she didn't value what you gave because she never believed she could lose it. And maybe right now, you're in that moment. Or maybe you've already passed through it. Either way, I need you to hear something. This is not your ending. This is your return. Not to who you were before her, but to who you became in spite of her. So before we go further, before we step into the stillness that changes everything, do this for yourself. If this story feels like yours, if it echoes something you've been too quiet to say out loud, like this video, if you know someone who's forgetting their own worth, trying to earn someone else's share it with them, and if you want more stories like this, soft, sharp, and unapologetically human, subscribe and stay with me. This is Silent Sage Stories, where we don't speak loudly, but we speak deeply. And sometimes that's enough. Now, let's go to the moment where it really begins. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't write a long message. You didn't slam the door. You just stopped explaining yourself. You'd done it so many times, trying to clarify your tone, your intentions, your loyalty. And each time, the more words you used, the more she questioned your meaning. She turned your care into guilt, your softness into weakness, your patience into permission. So one day, without warning or drama, you didn't argue. You just went quiet. Not in a passive-aggressive way, not in a sulking, manipulative way, but in the way only a tired heart can. A heart that has nothing left to prove, because it finally remembers being misunderstood isn't always your problem to fix. And that silence, that real silence, it's not about punishment. It's about peace. Because when a man stops explaining, he's not walking away. He's walking inward. And what she hears in that quiet isn't anger. It's clarity. The clarity that says, I don't need to convince you to value me. I just need to stop convincing myself that I'm not enough. And that's when it shifts. That's when she starts noticing the absence in your voice. Not the absence of volume, but the absence of effort, the absence of trying to earn space in a story you no longer want to be the villain in. It's not that you stopped caring. You just stopped explaining your care to someone who refused to receive it. And in that decision, quiet, unannounced, you became someone she could no longer reach. With the old games, the old guilt, the old drama, you became a mirror, and she saw something she wasn't ready to face. That maybe she was wrong, but now it's too late to matter. And that's the beginning of her regret. The beginning of your return. The moment you stop defending your worth is the same moment you begin protecting your peace. And peace, that's where we're going next. Because the man who chooses peace over chaos is the man who finally chooses himself. At first, peace feels unfamiliar, especially when you've spent so long wrapped in someone else's noise. You were used to reacting to late texts, to cold shoulders, to sudden warmth followed by emptiness again. You were trained to chase mood swings, to decode silence, to ask, "Are we okay?" When deep down, you knew the answer was always only when she decided so. But then something shifted. You began choosing peace, not the peace that begs to be earned, not the one that only lasts if you keep her happy, but the kind of peace that lives in your own breath, in quiet mornings, in undelivered texts, in choosing your schedule over her drama. At first, she doesn't notice. She thinks you're just tired, busy, waiting to come back around. But then she texts, and you say, "I'll call you later." She pokes at your boundaries, and you say, "I'm not okay with that." And she realizes something's different, because now, when she stirs the storm, you don't reach for an umbrella. You don't dance in the rain. You walk away. No yelling, no scenes, no final words, just distance. And it confuses her, because the chaos she once used to feel powerful no longer works. She calls, and you don't answer. She posts, and you don't watch. She sulks, and you don't chase. And in that quiet resistance, she hears something louder than any fight. You've reclaimed your peace. You've stopped letting her mood define your self-worth, because love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. And the moment you chose peace over permission was the moment you became the version of you that even she can't ignore anymore. Now here's the part no one tells you. You don't need to storm out of her life to be gone. You just need to stop orbiting hers. The attention you once gave so freely. The check-ins, the stories viewed, the little likes, the good morning messages. All of it slowly dissolves. And at first, she barely notices. After all, she trained you to chase. But absence has a weight, a gravity. It takes time, but eventually she feels it. Not in the loud, dramatic way she might expect, but in the quiet question that creeps in. Why hasn't he reached out? She opens her phone, scrolls, waits. Nothing. The feed refreshes. Still nothing. She posts something vague, something you'd usually reply to. You don't. She checks again. Still nothing. Because you're no longer competing. Not for her time. Not for her validation. Not for her breadcrumbs. You're investing that energy elsewhere. And suddenly, she's the one wondering. Because the man she thought she could keep on standby has stopped standing by. She starts comparing. The new attention she gets from others, it doesn't feel the same. Because it never came with your depth. And what she remembers isn't just the things you did. It's the way you showed up. Consistently. Fully. Without hiding. And now, the absence of that presence hurts more than she expected. But here's the truth. You're not doing this to hurt her. You're doing it because you finally realized you were the gift. And if someone makes you feel like a burden, it's okay to walk away quietly. Let's talk about that silence. Let's talk about what happens when you stop reacting to mixed signals and simply choose clarity. She used to keep you guessing. Today affectionate, tomorrow cold. A compliment, then silence. A long text, then vanishing. And you chased it all, not because you didn't know better, but because you hoped this time she meant it. You hoped the good moments were real, and the bad ones, just confusion. But it was all just control. Tiny emotional hooks designed to make you crave consistency she never planned to give. And so you reacted. You double-texted. You asked what you did wrong. You played detective in conversations where clarity should have come freely. Until one day you didn't. You stopped chasing. You didn't ask, what's wrong? You didn't decode her silence. You didn't fill the gaps she left open. You just got quiet. Because something inside you finally whispered, this is not love. This is a leash. And when you stopped reacting, she started panicking. Not because she missed you, but because she missed the control. Because now you smile and say, I'm good, and mean it. You give her space and don't use it to beg. You let her pull away and don't chase. That's when she realizes the power was never in her games. It was in your willingness to play. And now that you're no longer a contestant, her stage feels empty. Because silence, when chosen, is louder than any explanation. And in that quiet, she finally hears what she never listened to before. You're done, not hurt, not bitter, not punishing, just done. And there is no script for what to say when the one you thought you could always confuse has found peace in clarity. And now, there it is, the photo, the story, the moment, you laughing, not with her, not for her, but because you found something funny, because you remembered how it feels to be light again. You didn't post it for her to see, but she did, and it shook something, not jealousy, loss, because you used to shape your joy around her shadow. Now you live in the sun. You used to wait for her text. Now your phone is full of missed calls from people who matter more. You used to rehearse conversations in your head. Now you rehearse dreams, and she sees it. That smile, that glow, and most of all, that peace. The kind of peace that doesn't need an audience. The kind that can't be faked. And in her silence, she knows she didn't lose the man who begged. She lost the man who outgrew the need to be begged for. You don't hate her. You don't miss her. You remember her softly, distantly, the way you remember a song that once meant everything until you outgrew the lyrics. And in that, you find your answer, not in revenge, not in regret, but in a smile that no longer needs her to exist. That hurts more than anything, because it says you healed, and she didn't even notice you were breaking. So now you rise, and she watches, not because you asked her to, but because she can't look away, and the echo of your silence becomes the loudest thing she hears. If this story was yours, let it end here, softly, powerfully, silently, like all real goodbyes do. You don't have to be loud to be unforgettable. You just have to stop showing up where you're unseen. Silent Sage Stories. Like, share, subscribe. If this spoke to you, let it echo.